NTV, Central and Western Nebraska's most watched evening news. This is NTV News at 6.
It was not a crime of passion or an argument that got out of hand. Police say Angelo Bowl admits he came to Gibbon Pack with the intent to kill. Good evening. We thank you for joining us tonight at 6.
Yeah, cops say Angelo Bowl admitted to shooting and killing 34-year-old Karel Perez Almaguer. And that's just one of many interesting facts we're learning about today. According to court documents obtained by NTV News, the first responding officer was on scene between 60 and 90 seconds after that fatal shooting. When the officer arrived, he says he saw Bull still holding a gun, standing next to the dead body. Bull reportedly left work at Gibbon Packing Monday morning and returned later that night. He told authorities after his arrest that he went back with the intent to shoot Almaguer and potentially others as well. NTV News will stay on this story and continue to bring you the very latest as it develops.
Turning to Hastings, where that community is fighting for a $40 million project after a state report questioned the city's workforce.
Yeah, Steve White has more on a proposal to build housing units for mentally ill criminals. Steve, it's not just workforce from what we're understanding, but the report also says the buildings at that regional center may not work.
Yeah, Seth, one of the buildings could have worked, but it's too close to a juvenile facility, so that rules it out. Remodeling another building, they say that would cost as much as new construction, but community leaders press on.
I think if we build it, they will come.
Not enough professionals in Hastings. Senator Les Seiler dismisses that part of a state report that says the community can't recruit enough mental health workers to staff a proposed new center.
Their conclusion was we're going to have a hard time, but we're leading the group right now in all those charts, if you look on those charts.
Seiler says Hastings has been successful recruiting medical professionals.
They don't know Hastings very well.
Community leaders are making the case to host a first-of-its-kind center to treat the underlying problems of substance abuse and mental illness that a third of prisoners battle.
We just have this hamster wheel where they go round and round and round.
And if we can stop that circle, I think it's really important.
The report finds just one building on the regional center campus that's suitable, but it would cost as much to remodel as a new building. The mayor says Hastings is still the best fit.
We'll get an industry back in Hastings again that we're intimately familiar with, and the town members are not uncomfortable having this here.
Hastings may have to clear some hurdles, but leaders say they'll do what it takes.
I think we have a golden opportunity here. As you saw, $14 million, about $13 million of that was salaries, would be circulated by 283 employees in the city of Hastings.
Now, the Department of Corrections would run the center with some help from Health and Human Services. Both of those agencies currently in transition. The new governor will be looking for new heads of those. Senator Seiler said that may put things on hold, but he says it doesn't stop him. He says he's going to continue to work on behalf of Hastings.
Okay, very interesting. Steve, thanks so much for that update. Let's turn to weather now. Another chilly December day.
But no snow, so that's good, right, Kent?
Well, Colleen and Seth, snow is going to be around. I guess some areas actually will see more than others. North Central, a big share of eastern Kansas will see 2 to 3 inches of snow. That's one area that's under a winter weather advisory. Another area, southwest Nebraska, northwest Kansas, for freezing fog and snow on top of that. Already treacherous in that part of the state. We'll have more in your first alert forecast coming up. Seth?
Kent, thank you. Husker Nation is buzzing tonight following the release of what was said behind closed doors on Bo Pelini's last night with his team in Nebraska.
Sports Director Dave Greek joins us now live with more. Dave, first of all, what can you tell us?
I can tell you there's a lot. Omaha World Herald received an audio recording of a tape when Bo Pelini met with his players at Lincoln North Star High School, and this thing was just blasting with bad language, pointing the finger and accusations almost of not having the backing of the administration at UNL, specifically Harvey Perlman and Sean Eichhorst. And he was very upset with the situation at hand, how he didn't get any of their just support. At the end of the day, he, as in Sean Eichhorst, was never going to support us, and he didn't support us. He kind of mentioned on numerous occasions how Eichhorst was hiding in the shadows behind or underneath rocks, and he didn't come out and stand up for the University of Nebraska football program. And that's not entirely far-fetched. You don't see much of Sean Eichhorst at these games, at these events. You don't hear from him very often at all. So that's what he was getting at. But you got to remember, this is 2 or 3 days after being fired by the University of Nebraska, and he's still pretty hot. And then, of course, he had to go to the Lincoln North Star. And then here's Chancellor Perlman. I think there were agendas, and those go all the way over to the Chancellor's office. Excuse me, that was Bo Pelini saying this right here. Again, talking about how people didn't have his back at Nebraska. And the World Herald got this audio recording. It's about 4,000 words in all, and just a lot of reaction taking place on social media.
It's profane, it's volatile, and it's rather long, and it's a read on the Omaha World Herald. What was also interesting, at one point, Pelini makes comment that the administration was unhappy that they won the Iowa game, their last game of the season. So he thought it'd be easier to get him out the door. Whatever you say about this, it's a very eye-opening account of Pelini's last meeting with the Nebraska team. And I think, I'm just guessing here, but I'm guessing that Nebraska fans won't take that favorably, having looked at it. So.
No way. Now, the university's released a statement, Dave?
The university did come out and pretty much admonish everything Bo Pelini said. They were quite taken aback with his words, his actions. They said this was one of among many reasons why he was let go from the program, because of the way he acted and used this profane language. And you saw the demeanor on the sidelines, and this is kind of the demeanor behind closed doors that you really didn't get to see very often. At the press conference, it was real ho-hum, straight line as possible for the most part. Not a lot of girth to his subjects, but when you got behind closed doors there, you see a lot more from Pelini. And it was, you mentioned the Iowa. If he loses that game, it's a lot easier to let him go, and the fans aren't going to maybe be on at least the Pelini supporters aren't going to be on Nebraska as much if he loses that Iowa game. But even the year before, he says in this context that he was testing the administration to see where he stood, and they still didn't have his back one way or the other, and that's why he decided that this was something he wanted to do. He even considered trying to resign after last year because of that.
Okay, we'll get into more on this later in sports.
Yep.
You've got an interview with a former Husker.
Yeah,
right?
we got Scott Shanley, his take on the situation at hand.
Okay, thanks, Dave.
Thanks, Dave.
Well, President Obama declared today the end of what he called America's ineffective approach to Cuba.
The president announced the reestablishment of diplomatic relations as well as economic and travel ties with this communist island, a historic shift in U.S. policy that aims to bring to an end 50 years of Cold War policy. The Obama administration move follows more than a year of secret talks between the U.S. and Cuba, capped by a prisoner swap freeing American Alan Gross. Today's announcement has a Hastings man who has lived most of his life in Cuba excited.
He lived in both countries before ties were cut off. NTV's Sarah Kirkley sat down with him today and joins us now from our Grand Island newsroom with more. All right, Sarah.
Seth and Colleen, Evadio Reyes Sanchez remembers a time when he could take a ferry from Cuba to Miami and just make a day trip out of it. He hopes that things like that will be possible once again with today's announcement. Reyes Sanchez heard the news on the internet, or rather saw it. He says he knew Obama was the president that would restore diplomatic relations with Cuba, and he believes the U.S. embargo on the country will soon be lifted too.
It's just a mix of emotions with happiness and excitement with the decision that had happened with the decision that President Obama made. It's something that had an issue that had to be done a long time ago that we had been waiting for.
Our own Carmen Montez translating there. Many of Reyes Sanchez's family members still live in Cuba, a place he hasn't visited since he last came to live in the U.S. 14 years ago. I'll have more on how he thinks his family will be impacted coming up tonight at 10.
Well, he's got a story to tell. Very interesting. Thanks so much. Well, Kent's back in next with more where we could see some snow and some ice tonight. Plus, back to Pelini as he goes back to Ohio, and we'll hear from Bo Pelini on his first day on the job with Youngstown State.
Okay.
Interesting day for him.
The Christmas City is getting an early present, 30 new jobs. John Jankowski will have more from Minden.
NTV, where your news comes first, with Seth Denny, Colleen Williams, Ken Boughton weather, and Dave Grieg sports. This is NTV News at 6. Time now for First Alert Weather with NTV Chief Forecaster Ken Boughton.
Kind of a mixed bag of weather tonight. Freezing drizzle, patchy fog, some freezing fog, southwest Nebraska, and snow. Snow accumulations now lessen for most of Nebraska, including southwest Nebraska. It'll be an inch on top of ice on the roads, and that is already presenting itself as a problem with dense freezing fog occurring. Snow, on the other hand, northeast Kansas, maybe 2 to 3 inches. We'll see around 25 at bedtime, 20 at breakfast, 20 at dinner. Highs in the afternoon, right around 30 degrees. Until 6 a.m. tomorrow morning, this part of southwest Nebraska, northwest Kansas, east central Colorado could see 1 to 2 inches of snow on top of freezing drizzle, and freezing fog already a factor. 2 to 3 inches expected in north central northeast Kansas for a winter weather advisory lasting until 9 a.m. tomorrow morning. Visibility 1¼ mile presently at McCook, 1½ miles at St. Francis in Kansas, 4 miles at Thedford. At Ainsworth, visibility has actually improved in this part of the state. 10 miles, that's normal visibility, and that's what most of us are seeing. Here it is. This is a current view in the McCook area. Humidity 91% with some freezing fog. The barometer is 3011. Temperature 24 degrees. 22 at Broken Bow. It's currently 25 in Grand Island, Hastings, and Kearney. 26 in Lincoln. Mainly 20s across the region. Teens in the Panhandle. Here's the center of the storm that's going to track to our south tonight, and already that wraparound effect of all the moisture in the way of freezing rain right here in Kansas, heavy snow starting to fill in, and then heavy thunderstorm activity pushing into Missouri with more rain showing up in the southwest corner of Kansas as well. And Futurecast does show the progression of that system as it slides to our south, with more moisture possible by the first part of the week. In fact, there's a chance of rain that could switch over to snow at that time. Lows tonight will be in the teens, 20s east and north, and then highs tomorrow, upper 20s to around 30, some lower 30s in southeast Nebraska, mid 30s in north central Kansas. 19 the low, chances of freezing drizzle, patchy fog, and a 30% chance of snow. Highs tomorrow then around 30, and those chances will continue through the day with light winds. Tomorrow night then, overnight lows right around 25, light freezing drizzle, and that is a slight chance. Your 7-day, we gradually warm up for the weekend, the first part of next week, and then a cool down just in time for Christmas, and we'll have to see if snow drops into the forecast at that time. In the meantime, 43 for the first day of winter, the winter solstice on Sunday. But roads could be very treacherous in parts of southwest Nebraska tonight. It's already getting very dicey in the McCook area.
Be careful out there.
Indeed.
Thank you,
You
Kent.
bet.
We'll be right back.
30 more jobs for a city with around 3,000 people.
Royal Engineered Composites in Minden will receive a $600,000 grant to get new equipment and create more jobs. NTV's John Jankowski visited the work site today and joins us live. John, what do they make there?
Colleen and Seth employees there say if it flies, it probably makes parts for it. They help with planes, rockets, jets, helicopters, and satellites. A water saw cuts through to make a new helicopter blade. Business Development Manager at Royal Engineer Composites, Jared Ridge, says the 30 new jobs will elevate them to the next level.
So we need these additional 30 to bring on some 787 work that we're working on. So they're definitely important, and we definitely need them.
The Minden City Administrator says this is a big deal for the community.
More dollars into our community for the businesses. Hopefully a portion of those jobs, those folks will find places to stay and live here in Minden.
We're actually taking a piece of fabric here and putting it into a molded condition.
Very sticky fabric.
Workers set fabric to make a blocker door for an airplane. They are also working on parts for a Dreamliner and a Bell helicopter.
Products grow as the number of products we build and manufacture and ship out. We need more people to actually build the parts.
Some of the parts they make go to large companies like Lockheed Martin. For the openings, they are looking for engineers, quality inspectors, and building parts experience. Now with these new 30 jobs, the company will have a total of 180 employees on staff.
Boy, quite an expansion there. Good for them. Thanks so much, John. Well, Youngstown State has its new Emperor Penguin.
Good for them. Just kidding. Former Husker coach Bo Pelini was introduced at his hometown schools as the new head man. We're going to hear a lot from Bo Pelini, probably some things he didn't want us to know that he said. That's coming up next in sports.
Bo Pelini introduced as the 7th head coach of Youngstown State. The former head Husker asked if this is a holdover until a bigger and better opportunity arises.
I didn't come here to, this is not a stepping stone for me. I don't look at it that way. If I was looking to move, I would have taken one of the other opportunities. I came back here to provide a stable environment for my family, for my kids, in an environment where I want to see them graduate. I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know what is going to happen down the line. I mean, you know, it'd be crazy to say, hey, I'm going to be here for this long or that long. I don't even know how long they'd want me.
Might not be long if he doesn't learn to bite his tongue. The Omaha World-Herald releasing the context of an audio tape from Pelini's secret meeting at Lincoln North Star on December 2nd, where the coach goes on a tirade attacking AD Sean Eichhorst and Chancellor Perlman. Former Blackshirt linebacker Scott Shanley joining us now here on NTV News. Scott, what is your takeaway from Bo Pelini's comments?
Well, it's very discouraging, disheartening. I think it about sums up kind of the chaos that we've seen over the past few years with what's been going on. And for him to leave like that, I wasn't surprised by it one bit, and I know a lot of people were, but I think if you just kind of measured by everything that was going on over the last few years, you knew that there was not a total commitment on his part to what the University of Nebraska was all about.
I saw you tweeted out as a football player you didn't care who the athletic director or the coach was. Do you think these guys really cared, or were they strictly there for football?
My tweet was 100% dead on. As a football player, the president of the university and the athletic director, I mean, we didn't even know who those guys were. And they're not coaching football. They're not teaching us techniques. They're not teaching us how to be better men. It's those coaches who you deal with on a daily basis. So my biggest issue was the fact that there were people above Coach Pelini that he was having issues with, and he brought it to the football team. And I really wish that wouldn't happen, because I think all it does is it starts to create a divisive force with those kids and the University of Nebraska and what it stands for. And, you know, for me, when I was there, the football program and the state of Nebraska were intertwined, and they were one. And we took pleasure in providing satisfaction to the state of Nebraska by winning games and how much it meant to them. And I just don't think that was ever there, and a lot of it was because of what was brought from Coach Pelini from the guys above him, and he brought it to the players, and I think that was unfair to the players.
Do you think it seems like a lot of fans are reacting negatively to what Pelini is saying. Is there anybody that's going to be behind him, especially when he talks about Eichhorst and Perlman specifically forcing Osborne out of office in 2012?
Yeah, well, I mean, anytime, you know, whether or not those statements are true, I mean, I think a lot of people are going to doubt whether that's true, but if it was true, you don't know what the reasons were why they would want to force a guy like Coach Osborne out, and I have a hard time believing that because of the type of guy he is. The only reason I could think of, honestly, was maybe it was because Coach Osborne hired Bo Pelini, and they were having a hard time dealing with Coach Pelini's actions on the sideline and him being a major face of the university. And if maybe there was friction with who the head coach was and who hired the head coach.
Scott Shanley, a former Nebraska linebacker. Scott, thanks so much for your time.
Yeah, no problem.
I also asked Scott his reaction to this now being the second time somebody has released audio about Bo Pelini, and if there should be any concerns for future Huskers that they might have something leak at some point, and his reaction on that is tonight at 10.
In this society, I mean, you got to expect
everyone's got a recording
But
device
that
in
was
their
like the
phone.
one place you can't expect, I would think. I mean,
come on, a bunch of teenagers
all he
and
did was give
young
those
men?
players love during that meeting. He wasn't bashing the players. It's not like, well, this guy's ragging on
Do
me.
you think it's appropriate to use that language? I know it's football, but
I don't have a problem with it myself. I think if we're going to have kids go to war at the age of 18, they can hear language like that from their head football coach.
Certainly got a lot of people talking.
Yes, it does.
Sure.
We'll be right back. Kent.
Well, there is that dense freezing fog down in southwest Nebraska. Winter weather advisories for part of our region. Snow, maybe a dusting across Nebraska, heavier in Kansas.
All right, Kent, thank you. Thank you for joining us.
Good evening, Nebraska's up next. Good night.